Welcome to the Holistic High Achiever podcast. I'm your host, Kaitlin. This podcast is all about thriving in the modern world without sacrificing your health. It's for all of my fellow high achievers and business owners, mompreneurs and single parents, the people who do so much for everyone else and sometimes at a detriment to their own health. The people who want to do it all but need to find a better way without burning themselves out or continuing to put their own health on the back burner. Yes, we'll talk about health, nutrition, and movement and easy solutions to living healthier, but we'll also cover topics like goal setting, building habits, and overcoming challenges and limiting beliefs, which can be applied to any area, including health, so that you can thrive holistically. All right. I always say you cannot exercise your way out of a bad diet. On average, weight loss is about 80% diet and 20% exercise. So while exercise is important and it helps with that extra 20% and it makes you look good, look more toned, increase your heart health, improve immune function, it's also been shown to improve mental health. But if you're working out every day, but still eating like garbage, you're still far less likely to lose weight. In fact, it's actually likelier that you can gain weight because you're building muscle mass, which is heavier than fat. And apps like MyFitnessPal and other food logging apps can be helpful for some, but not if they're allowing you to count your workouts as a way to eat more calories. I've seen that in MyFitnessPal, and I have no idea if that's actually still the same because I haven't used it in forever, but you'd enter a workout, for example, if you went for a run, and it would estimate how many calories were on a 30-minute run. So let's just say like you burned 150, and then it would add that to your allotted calories that you were supposed to be eating for the day. So for numbers' sake, if they normally recommended eating 1,800 calories, they'd add 150, making your total 1,950, which is backwards because it gives you this false sense to, I get to eat more now, I've earned it. When in reality, weight loss does require a deficit in calories, meaning eat less calories per day than you're currently eating if you want to lose weight. So it really depends on what your goals are. And also, side note, 150 calories is something that many people largely underestimate when it comes to food. It might sound like kind of a lot or a decent amount, but that's like one small cookie, which isn't something that's going to fill you up or sustain you, and you're still going to be hungry. And yeah, there are some workouts that might burn more calories than others. And then there are some workouts that will help build more strength, leading to more muscle mass, which is good for longevity and balance, among other things. But even if your goal isn't to get bulky, like having a good amount of lean muscle mass will actually help your body in the long run burn more calories when your body's at rest, which will then in turn make weight loss more attainable. So I want to give some examples here just because I like numbers of average calories burned. So I pulled out these from Google and a few other online sources just to give you an idea. But keep in mind, these are estimates because there are so many things that can impact how many calories are burned, like weight, age, intensity level. So one of the calculators I put in, I used someone who was 160 pounds and did a 45-minute workout to try and keep them as consistent as possible when I'm giving these ballpark ranges. So boxing, 315 calories. Elliptical, 281. Jogging, 344. Kayaking, summer's almost here, 286. Rowing, 300. Shoveling snow, 145. Swimming, 315. Walking, 172. Yoga, 189. Sleeping, 54. Yes, you burn calories while sleeping. I don't know if there's a way to increase or decrease it, though, other than like changing your muscle mass. It's not like you can work out while sleeping. Okay, so let's say for our purposes of this conversation that the average 45-minute workout is going to burn 260 calories. A vanilla latte is about 260 calories. When you think of common snacks that people have, especially those like mid-afternoon pick-me-up snacks, a small bagel is 280 calories. If you add cream cheese, it's another 100 approximately. And if you eat a large bagel, it's even more. The average muffin is 426 calories. 1 ounce of chips is 160. And if we're being completely honest, we all eat way more than 1 ounce of chips. 1 ounce of pretzels is 108. I feel like those chips and pretzels are both ones that we could just like multiply by 4 or 5 if we're being honest with ourselves. A Snickers bar is 250 calories and a cola Average cola is 140. So, notice a lot of the things I mentioned are snacks. A lot of them are also things that you're going to end up hungry again in like an hour because they're empty calories. They don't have a large enough source of protein, fiber, or healthy fats. And they're often super high in sugar, which is just going to spike your blood sugar and then bring you into this crash. And in that crash, it's going to leave you wanting more junk food and sugar to pick you back up. So it's this cycle. It puts you in this cycle. And often when you're working out, your body, it does increase your metabolism a lot of times. And so, especially with more intense workouts, HIIT workouts, running, boxing, those types of things. So it's really important to make sure you're getting the right calories. And like I said in the beginning, if your goal is weight loss, a calorie deficit is definitely required. However, I am not a fan of restriction. Hopefully, if you've listened to a few of my episodes by this point, you know that. Like, I'm not a fan of deprivation, too much restriction, or even counting calories forever. But I want to talk about some easier and more simplified ways to accomplish that deficit in a more healthy and sustainable way than just depriving yourself. And although I'm not a fan of counting calories forever, it is helpful to give some perspective. Because a lot of times we'll be like, oh yeah, I probably ate like 1,500 calories today. And then if you go through and add up your day, how many you ate, you're like, oh, how'd I get to 2,800? So it's just sometimes helpful to see real concrete numbers and how many calories are in certain foods, because there can be foods that you thought were really healthy and then they turn out they're not. And even junk food tends to be higher in calories, but even some foods that are good for you can be also somewhat high in calories. Not always, but I want to help kind of decipher some of this. So my number one tip, especially if you don't want to count calories all the time, is to just focus on whole foods, nutrient-dense foods, real foods. Cook at home as much as you can, but also focus on real minimally processed foods so you know what you're getting and they hold the most possible number of nutrients for you. And when I say whole foods and real foods, it's like, is it an ingredient or is it a packaged product with a bunch of like million things in it you can't pronounce? And like I said, some of those processed packaged foods, there's always exceptions to the rule, but it's often higher in calories and it doesn't fill you up or sustain you for nearly as long than some of the nutrient-dense foods. So that's the difference. Nutrient-dense foods that are higher in calories can still be good because they're going to sustain you and keep you full longer. So you're not craving more food. They're generally going to contain some protein to help you build that lean muscle mass that's going to be good for you in the long run, even with weight loss. Remember, muscle is great even if you don't want to get bulky, because having more lean muscle mass helps you burn more calories at rest while you're sleeping, like that sort of thing. So, and it can help increase your metabolism. So keep in mind, while calories are an important part of the equation, they're not the only thing that matters. I'm simply stating some numbers to give you some perspective. It's more actually so the right calories that matter. And if you haven't already listened to my episode on getting enough protein, that's probably a good place to start. But otherwise, if you want the short and sweet of it, just looking at foods that are higher in protein, fiber, and healthy fat. Foods that don't have 100 ingredients on the ingredient list that you can't pronounce. And again, I have said this 100 times in the past before, but I am always of the belief that if you phase in the good stuff, the real foods, the whole foods, the nutrient-dense foods, it makes it so much easier to phase out the quote-unquote bad stuff, because it really just naturally makes less room for it. So if you are the type of person who wants a mid-afternoon snack, towards the end of the day, you need a little pick-me-up, one last tip I give is thinking of your snacks as like miniature meals. So I don't know, chicken teriyaki, right? Could you put together a small miniature little portion of it that's not going to fill you up so much that you're not going to be hungry for dinner, but it's also got some protein in it. It has some like brown rice and some vegetables with fiber and things that are actually healthy for you, but just in a smaller portion. that's going to serve you better than having the bagel or the muffin or the Starbucks latte because it has nutrients. It'll get you through till dinner and you're not going to end up with that crash. And it's likely, even if it's the same amount of calories, there's more nutrients in it. So those are my tips. Keep it simple. Calories are important, but the right calories are way more important. Focusing on whole, real foods. And if you do need snacks, focusing on making your snacks like a mini meal, or at the very least, making sure there's some protein content in it. I'll link some sources like for the calculators for different workouts. If you're curious to go type in your own and what type of workouts you're doing, that'll be in the description below. Thank you so much for being here with me today on the Holistic High Achiever. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired and ready to take on the world one healthy step at a time. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, follow, subscribe, and leave a review. All of those help so much. And if you're anything like me, you probably thought of someone else who would likely resonate with this. So don't forget to share it with them, because who can't use a little extra motivation? Until next time, friends, keep embracing your journey and kicking ass.